problem. It's something that's wrong inside, an infection or something like that. If you treat that, then the fever will go away. But you put the cold compress on the head, you're trying to treat the fever when the fever is just a symptom of something else. It's a indicator of another problem, of something deeper that's inside the system that needs to be fixed in order to let the extremities of the system operate correctly. And so mental illness was the most recent thing I came to before I went on a walk. And how I wound up deciding to go the route that I did was I started, okay, mental illness is everywhere. It's not just in Rome, it's all over now. You have more and more children every 5 years. The number of children born with autism increases. It has an extreme increase in the number. I remember at one point in time it was like 1 in 10,000, and then like a few years later it's like 1 in 160 children are born with autism. Now outside of the nebulous way that they declare when someone has autism, I see that there with the lax environmental regulations, and a host of other things. There are more and more chemicals that we don't know what they do being put in the food. There are more things in our immediate environment that could possibly have an effect on us, and no one's paying attention because there's just so much happening so fast. And there's an economic incentive to not pay attention. Okay.
No, hold that thought real quick. We're going to go over here to the lines 203. Did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I do. Good evening, Nora.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. The parallel that you drew between mental illness and the causes of the problems in the world, how did that subsequently drive you to go on your mission or take the walk to bring some sort of resolution or awareness to homelessness?
Well, okay, so that's exactly where I am in the story. I'm glad you asked that. The next step, what happened was I was at a point in my life where it was time for me to stop thinking. I've always been like a philosopher, and I wanted to act on it in a real way. I was completing my education. I was going to be out in the real world, so I'm going to act in the real world. I acted at university doing voter registration drives and this, that, and the other, and I did recruiting for the university, trying to get kids to go to college, but I want to act on a larger scale out in the real world. And so once I figured, I came to that conclusion about mental illness, the question became, where do you find mentally ill people in society? The two places are on the streets or in the penitentiary. The largest mental health care facility in the state of Texas is the Harris County Jail System. And it just became, the question was then, all right, so how do I get to these populations to see what's going on? So I started looking for opportunities to volunteer at both, and the homeless population kind of dropped into my lap, like the opportunity to volunteer with the homeless dropped in my lap. And so I chose that population to go and look in that direction to just kind of see what was really going on, what mental illness really looked like, and how it played itself out in our society, how the people who are most affected with the most severe cases, how did they live, how did this wind up happening? So that's how I started volunteering with this homeless service provider in Houston. And what wound up happening then was I just, every week I go out two, maybe 3 times a week, and we go out and give food to the different people in different pockets of homelessness around the city, different camps, go out around to other organizations that may have people sleeping on the streets outside, give out food. And what would happen, the idea was not necessarily just giving food. The goal was to give out food as a way to break the ice, serve some of the immediate needs of the people living on the streets, but there was always a long-term goal of getting people to come back in to search. That was the organization. Come back in to search and get help so they can get off the streets. And in doing that, that's where I started to really see what was going on with homelessness. And homelessness is a large mental health issue. So I'm glad I went that direction. But it's more than mental health. You got several different popular groups of homeless people. You can break it down in two different groups. And one group being temporary. They're just homeless for between up to like 3-4 months. There's another group that's homeless from 6 months and above, and they fall into the chronically homeless group population.
Mm-hmm.
This is the group where more of the mentally ill are. This is the group where when you hear about the veterans on the streets, that's where they are. And it plays itself out in several different ways. But I started to see how diverse the population was, and how many roads people took to wind up sleeping on the street. It wasn't just somebody going crazy. It wasn't just someone who was a veteran. There's just several different ways. You get out of penitentiary with a felony, it's really hard to get an apartment. It's really hard to get a job. You don't have an address, you can't get a job. Go ahead.
Well, no, okay. This is, how is the homelessness? How is a person's homelessness status relevant to mental illness? Like what? So am I understanding, is everyone that's plagued with homelessness or their life experience is homelessness, they have a mental issue as well?
No. That's the thing. Once I got there, I realized that most of the people who are homeless aren't mentally ill. There's a good portion of them that have some sort of mental or emotional disability. But that is not the entire population.
Okay.
So homelessness doesn't mean mentally ill. But homelessness, as we know it, kind of developed in the 80s. There was a court case. ACLU took Ronald Reagan to court because he had people in these mental hospitals. Essentially, the ACLU said you're holding these people against their will. Even though they're mentally ill, they have a right to choose whether or not they want this help or not. The government lost, ACLU won, and then all these people wound up on the streets.
Wow.
And so that's how, a bunch of the population got much bigger. Yeah, this is national. This is a federal thing. There are a bunch of federal hospitals and stuff like that, and mental health, this, that, and the other, and funding from the federal government. Okay. They lost that case, and so the money disappeared, and the organization disappeared, and the people wound up on the street. But okay, now that is what I started to see. 40% of homeless is children under the age of 18. 40. I think in Texas, it was like the average age of a homeless person in the state. The average age of a homeless person in the state of Texas at that time was 12 years old. So there's a large amount of children.
It's everywhere. Like, everywhere. So
right.
It's interesting.
And even in the surrounding areas, in more rural, less urban areas, there are people who are wind up homeless and living not in a home, a place meant for a human domicile permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a big issue, and there are many different ways to do it. And so as I was volunteering, I started to see homelessness not necessarily as an effect of mental illness, but homelessness is almost as a snapshot of all the problems in our society. There are a bunch of people who are homeless, who were homeless during this time because of medical bankruptcy. Like, you get kicked off the insurance, a couple of heart attacks, or whatever, a car accident or two, and you don't have your insurance anymore. You put your house up, lose your house, you're on the street.
Wow.
Of course, the revolving door of incarceration and homelessness and several things. You look at education. There's a correlation between education and incarceration. There's also a correlation between incarceration and homelessness. So therefore, people with higher education and better opportunities for higher quality education are less likely to be homeless. And there's a bunch of different things, and anything you look at on the news, political decisions that people make, that the politicians make, they make people homeless. Like, a bad political decision can get rid of jobs, folks wind up on the streets. A whole bunch of stuff.
Oh,
You can all find it in the homeless population.
No.
You can find it all in the homeless population.
Bring us to. We're getting near the halfway point of the show. Bring us to. Because I see, I'm gonna need you to have come on with for the full 2 hours.
I told you, I'm working as fast as I can.
How did that translate into you walking from Houston to L.A., California, for homelessness? How that came about?
All right. So I was thinking about. I had toyed around with the idea of walking across the country for a while. I love walking. I enjoy it. I just finished school, playing around with the idea on my computer about what would I have to do to walk to the Grand Canyon. Google searched the route, and I was thinking about it, looking at it, kind of intently looking at it for a few days while I was volunteering. And I talked to a couple of folk on the van with me about the possibility of doing it. They what are you doing, Noah? Oh, just looking at this route from Houston to the Grand Canyon. It'd be cool to walk. One of the guys said, yeah, man, I hitchhiked from wherever he's from, Minnesota, all the way to Hawaii. And the other guy was like, yeah, I walked up a whole bunch of places when I was homeless. And the idea was you know what, if you had a charity, somebody may be able to sponsor you, may be able to do something for the charity. I said, you know what, that's a good idea. What about this organization? I love what it does because I do it every day with you guys, often with you guys. You do a bunch of help. Homelessness is really central to what to my worldview right now. If I walk to the Grand Canyon, well, it makes LA, because LA is the largest homeless population in the city, in the country. Mm-hmm. If I walk from Houston to LA, we may be able to raise some money for the organization. And so they said, you know what, that may be a good idea. Talk to the president of the organization and see. I talked to the higher ups, and they said, let's do it. And 8 months later, I left Houston to walk to LA. So that's how that happened.
My
background, it took 4.5 months. The trip, as I plotted it, was a 1,800-mile journey. I went up to Dallas from Houston, Arlington, Fort Worth, took 287, I believe it is, up to Amarillo, Interstate 40, and rode it out and walked it all the way to the California border, and took Route 66 through the Mojave Desert into Los Angeles, and I didn't stop till I was 9 feet out, up to my knees in the Pacific Ocean. I left on March 24th, 2007. By the time I got to Dallas, it was a late winter, so it was snowing there. And, it was tornado season starting up when I got to Amarillo, and I reached the Mojave Desert, Arizona, and the Mojave Desert right at the height of summertime. So it was a very difficult undertaking, but it was a positive one, a very positive one, because what I did, the awareness raising tool I had was the media, and my basic routine was to walk 20 miles a day. I had a support vehicle, so I'd sleep in a support vehicle. My food and water would generally be on that. I carry something with me so I can walk and drink while I eat and drink while I walk. And when I came to a city that had a service,
is this nonstop? Is this not? Oh, one moment. No, we got it. Okay, area code 203. You got a question or a comment?
Yes, he's actually answering it. However, in the process, taking that long of a walk, what effects did that have on your outlook of homelessness after you took the walk?
Well, it made it more personal for me, and it was quite a humbling experience. Because at one point in time, when I left, I was trying to be the hero. I'm gonna help fix this problem, so those people can have a better life. There was this point in time, I think I was in Fort Worth. I walked into this restaurant. It may have been Carl Jr. or something. No, the first thing happened, I saw this woman across the street. This Hispanic lady was coming out of her house. I was on 287 heading to Fort Worth. I said, excuse me, ma'am, am I heading in the right direction? I'm going to Fort Worth. And she looked at me and shrugged her shoulders and said, I'm sorry, I don't have any money. And then she pulled her keys out and jumped in her car real quickly and burnt off. And then the same day, a little bit later, a couple of people like they wouldn't let me use their restroom in their business, and I needed to use the restroom. Somebody, I walked outside and asked these two women who were down the street in front of me, like, where did you all use the restroom? Can I use the restroom? They said, right there, they'll let you use it. And they pointed to the place that I just walked out of. So I was like, oh, they think I'm homeless. And when I was in Fort Worth, I was eating dinner somewhere with Jaree, the support vehicle driver. And when I walked in the restaurant, everybody gave me that look that people give somebody who they think is gonna ask them for some money, or somebody they think may stink or something like that. Someone who they think is homeless. They gave me that look, and I got extremely angry because I'm not one of them. I'm better than them. And then I heard myself thinking that, and then I felt I started to feel really bad about feeling that way. Like, I didn't know I had that inside of me, but it came up when the situation was turned on me. And so, like, that depressed me for a little bit. I was like, wow, I need to think about that for a while, because, like, I'm one of those people who say those people in this instance. And over time, that I walked through it. I walked it off, and that was gone. I started to see, it became more of a kinship when I come across people who I noticed were homeless. So what I do when I came to each city, we send out press releases, invite the media out, and stop in at a shelter. So I would get an interview. The news media outlet, a newspaper, television station, whoever, would come and interview me at the shelter, but at the same time, they do a story on the shelter itself. And so I was kind of a gimmick, a media draw to get them to actually do a story on homelessness and kind of increase the conversation. So that was the awareness raising tool. It worked. It worked pretty well. In every city, I got something. But what I did see that I didn't see, had no idea of while I was in Houston volunteering, that there are so many people who don't come into town and deal with shelters at all. I just see them out on the road walking. We'd stop at a truck stop on the edge of the city, and people be sleeping on the grass. I remember in Amarillo, I spent 3 days with some guys, off and on. Like, every day I go back and check on them. They were just sleeping out in this field. And I asked them, like, why don't you go in? There are a bunch of good organizations in the city, go and get some services. And he was like, yeah, both of them had their different reasons, but they were one guy was, like, homeless permanently for 20, 30 years. He like, I don't go into the city because it's dangerous, get mugged, your stuff stolen. And the other guy was just trying to get out of town. So I started to see that more often and see that there are other ways that people live. And then there's even a point to where I realized that there are people who choose to be out there. Not necessarily like choose to just live on streets and panhandle, but like I met several guys who never came into the city. They stayed out kind of in the wilderness. Like they come in every now and then and maybe beg up some change and get a few supplies and go back out for weeks out into the wilderness. And so it starts to play itself out in different ways in different cities and states. The picture looks differently. When I walked through the Navajo reservation, poverty wasn't a black or Latino thing. It was a Navajo, Apache, or Pueblo thing. So the homeless population took on those dimensions as well. One of the interesting things about Arizona, I walked to the Grand Canyon, walked through Flagstaff. Flagstaff is almost 8,000 feet in elevation. So during the summertime, a lot of the homeless people would migrate up to Flagstaff because it's cooler. And during the winter, they go back down to Phoenix and Tucson because it's warmer. So the population there is very mobile. As it is here, even when I got to Dallas, the first person I met at the shelter was a dude from my very neighborhood who grew up like 3 streets down from me. He was homeless on the street of Houston. He wound up in Dallas, and then move around based on whatever opportunity you can get or whatever. And so it broadened my perspective on what homelessness is itself, and it changed I started to really get an understanding of what the problem really looked like, as opposed to what I thought it looked like. It's bigger and more fundamental than I thought.
Mhm. So, are you? What are you doing now? Are you, telling the story in a preventative way, or I mean, what are you doing now as it pertains to what you realized, doing the walk?
Well, what I did, the outcome of the walk, tried to raise $1 million. We raised like 2,000 and spent six, so we lost a bunch of money doing it. But we did raise a bunch of awareness, and I got a platform that people respect. When I got back to Houston, I started the Houston Sleep Out. Co-founded the Houston. I met a guy who became a buddy of mine, and we started the Houston Sleep Out, and it raised $100,000 over the next 2 years for that same organization that I was trying to raise money for in the first place. After that, they stopped doing it, but the event's still going on. And so what the Sleep Out is one night where those interested in learning more about homelessness come in. When we come to this event, it's outside somewhere, and it can be in several places around the city. Sometimes in multiple locations, sometimes it's just one location. And what we do is we put on a program that's aimed at educating people on the realities of homelessness and helping them abandon some of the preconceptions that we just naturally adopt as part of the society. So we'll have personal testimonies from people who are homeless at the moment or who were homeless, or both if possible. We will have people from different organizations that serve the homeless come out and speak about their organization, the initiatives that they have, how they help the homeless, and how concerned people can join them and support their efforts. And we had at that point in time, every now and then, we have personal a discussion after it's all done, so people can share their new feeling. And it never fails. People cry because they either had someone who was homeless, or it's like peeled the cap off a person and pulled the veil back and let them see that it's not what they thought it was. Because people often think, they're just lazy, or they're all alcoholics. Leave them alone. A lot of people come out to the Sleep Out and leave have with a different understanding. And I talk as much as I can. Like, I go to schools when I have the opportunity. Someone wants me to. I reach out to schools, community organizations, wherever I can go to do that. Last year, we had a photo exhibit, so I'm trying to actually get that to travel to the DFW area in the near future. That's on the walk, and so with the photo exhibit will come several programs. Of course, a gallery talk, but it'll also be several discussions on homelessness, from round tables, panel discussions, different things to help educate the community, and educate the willing in the community on what it really looks like, and to help plug them in with people who can help. So those are some of the things. The Sleep Out, the gallery is a big thing, and going to schools, elementary, middle, high school, universities, wherever I can get in, and talking and helping to kind of broaden the discussion on what homelessness is at every opportunity.
Nikisha was going to be with us earlier. However, I understand that you and Nikisha are writing a book. We'll be having a book called The Long Walk. That is
called Noah's Walk.
Noah's Walk, excuse me. That's based on your all that you just spoke of.
Right.
Is there anything you want to say about that? Any type of launch date that you may have? I know you all are open to sponsors. Just go ahead and use this moment to plug what's going on with it and whatever type of assistance that you need.
Well, right now, we're trying to raise enough sponsors to do the final production of the book. And that, once we get a better bead on the rate of sponsors coming in, we hope to have the book out for sure by the end of November. My name is Noah Rattler. Noah like the ark, Rattler like the snake. you hit me on Facebook, any social media, or Nikisha Pickney. You can go to the freeheartoftruth.com and hit her up if you are interested in becoming a sponsor. What the sponsors get with the book, and we give you a shout out, a line on our sponsorship page that has your company name or your personal name, whatever it is, and contact information. If you're a business, you can put your website on there, and everyone who gets the book will get this and see you as a supporter of something that is trying to educate the greater community on this issue that's so deeply tied entire society. And the reason we're doing it, the children's book is important. Like, we can't get into any super deep concepts, but it's a good opportunity to introduce the concepts of philanthropy, the concepts of community service, the idea of homelessness, and even deeper, start at a young age, letting children know that just because you're one person can make a difference, no matter how big the problem is. Mm-hmm. And so that's the theme I think we're trying to get across in this story. One person can make a difference, no matter how big the problem is. And I think little things like that help children. When we plant the seed in a child, as the child grows, the seed grows and turns into something big. Like the seed that was planted in me when I was young, it turns into something big that's getting bigger.
Well, I think, let me try this again. Nikisha, 713.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you now. Yes, we have just a few moments. Can you, I know I've been getting your messages that you've been trying to talk to us, but we were not able to hear you. So, we're about to go into the second half, but feel free, go ahead and share what it is that you're trying to share with us earlier.
Well, as Noah mentioned, we are in the process of gaining sponsorship for the book. The children's book is actually called Noah's Walk, and it's very, very educational. You know, it has geography, cultural awareness. It has quite a bit of keys and tools that will help benefit the children, help them to grow and expand their knowledge. There is a link on my website, freeheartoftruth.com, where there'll be more information forthcoming on the release date, etc. And we are, as Noah said, in the process of looking for sponsors. Anyone could be a sponsor. For basic sponsorship is $100, and they can either inbox me on Facebook. They can always get in contact with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, anything from my website, freeheartoftruth.com, for us to actually send you a sponsorship package. This is tax deductible because someone can actually write it off as a business expense. But, I mean, Noah really pretty much covered it, and I think that he's an amazing person, and I'm glad to be working with him.
Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you both so much for stopping by and having the time, or taking the time to inform us of, you definitely have brought some things to my mind in regards to homelessness, poverty issues, period. So I would like you to be able to come back. I feel like you had a boatload more of information to share with us. So
man.
You're
welcome, and I will.
That again. Okay.
I will.
All right. You have a wonderful evening. Stay on the line and listen if you'd like to. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with Aisha Gaines of Honeybee Natural Magazine. All right.
BG of Dallas, Dallas's finest restaurant and dinner club, is open for your culinary and entertainment pleasure. Get ready for their featured band, Intense, performing at their all-you-can-eat Saturday matinee starting at 1 p.m. Feast on their all-you-can-eat Sunday brunch starting at 11 a.m. Then, join them for the big game at 5 p.m. until, with $5 admission and all-you-can-eat buffet starting at halftime. Also, multimedia drink specials for $6. You call. You will love their multimedia venue. Try their daily $6.99 lunch special Monday through Friday, or the succulent dishes on their lunch or dinner menus, such as shrimp, steak, chicken and waffles, pasta, desserts, and more. They have created BG of Dallas just for you. Open Monday through Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Thursday, 10 a.m. until midnight. Friday and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. Sunday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. 3662 West Camp Wisdom Road in Dallas. Located at Southwest Center Mall on the lower level between Sears and Macy's.
Okay,